Namaste, everyone. It is me, Nina Sachs, with you from Yoga Awakening Africa. And today I am delighted to be speaking to Janet from Janet's Planet. Janet, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. Hot and sunny here in Cape Town today.
Oh, fantastic. And we're like hot and humid here in Mozambique. So I think you've at least got a little bit of sea breeze where you might be. We're like inland stuck and but it's all good. Hey, it's all part of where we are and what we get up to. So Janet, this is pretty cool because I think this is the first time that we're actually connecting like this. And I'm like really inspired. One, kind of like when I came across your website, I know one of the things, and I don't know if it's still apparent or one of your dreams of wanting to happen, where like you want to have your own retreat space and something like that out in nature. Is that still true?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah. I
And
lived in the
so kind of
forest
like
for a
your
while.
journey is sorry, let you get to that moment. So your journey is kind of like with yoga, sound healing, sound journeying, mantras, chanting. So tell me a little bit about your journey, your yoga experience, kind of like how you've navigated to all of these amazing healing practices and modalities.
Okay, so I think it began back in about 2007. I was traveling through Southeast Asia and by myself, and I started to get exposed to yoga, to alternative healing, and I actually lived in a treehouse for a while. Hence, the treehouse retreat vision grew while I was living in this treehouse. And so that's, I think, where I first had this sort of exposure to yoga. And then I came home and I started trying out different classes and eventually found my teacher, who is Victor van der Klee. Well, he's one of the many, but he's my sort of foundational teacher. And yeah, so I actually studied a lot with him, and he was running an ashram at the time in the forest of Knysna. So I lived with him quite a lot in the forest and kind of lived and breathed yoga. We had a whole ashram schedule, so I learned all about not just obviously the postures, but also about the breath work, the chanting. All we did permaculture, so it was kind of like this whole holistic, all-inclusive kind of. He called it the moving in awareness ashram. So it was all about whatever you're doing on or off the mat, you're moving in awareness.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I studied with him, and then I was teaching for quite some time, and then I think the retreats began about 8 years ago. What I like about the retreats is I could kind of combo everything I loved into the retreats, kind of everything I learned from the ashram, and the sound healing started coming more and more in over the last few years as well. It started off, obviously my travels, I used to work as a tour guide, so I was often in Asia through that. And so then I got exposed to, the singing bowls and all the beautiful sacred instruments. And so then I started adding more sound into my shavasanas, and then the shavasanas got longer and longer, and then started getting more instruments, and then kind of merged into the sound journeys and that side of things. So that's kind of how it's grown over the years, and I've dabbled in different. So my training with him was in sort of like classical, traditional hatha yoga. And then I've also went to Nepal and I did some more studying there. I studied vinyasa there and also studied yin yoga in India, funnily enough. And yeah, I've just kind of kept studying and adding bits and pieces along wherever I've gone along the way.
Brilliant, brilliant. And kind of like with that, you were saying that in the last 7-8 years, you've created yoga retreats and taken people on experiences. How do you find like the yoga retreats, kind of like being in that space is different from just teaching a yoga class? And what do you enjoy about hosting retreats?
I think I probably love being away from the city and in nature, first of all, because when I was living in the ashram in the forest, I was like, yep, this is my happy place. So I think you can go a lot deeper with the processes on a retreat as well. You can go a little bit more immersive. I like that you can. Okay, I also really enjoy creating food. So recently I've started to employ a chef, but I used to do the food on my retreats as well. So I love dipping into creating like the vegan feasts and then doing some walking in nature and then doing some yoga. I just like the diversity of it. And I've worked a lot with another friend of mine who also adds in her workshop. So just kind of working with a theme, and as I say, just going sort of lining up the processes in the retreat so that it kind of builds up to something so that you can really get beautiful results as to where you'd like to work, or where you need clarity, or where the healing needs to come in. So you've just got the time and space to go a little bit deeper, and obviously you get time to create community and create friendships and deeper connections with everybody as well. Yeah.
I think that's such an important aspect. I love what you were saying, firstly, with regards to like you building up kind of like towards a peak in the retreat, like that there's like a purpose towards everyone being there, if it's for the collective as a group, or each person individually, that they each have their own purpose, and kind of like that you're building onto that with regards to if it's the yoga or going out for nature walks, what you're eating. And I think what you tapped on in there that I find so interesting is this idea of community, how like, when you come together as a group, like you just form such a strong bond, and because there's such a deep trust. And I think like that's what happens, at least when I also co-host yoga retreats with a friend of mine, Nicole, what happens is that there's this deep level of trust that with a group that everyone like kind of like trust each other so quickly, so easily, which allows everyone to go deep quite quickly. And that's I find where transformation happens for a lot of people in this really gentle, safe space for them. Have you also noticed that?
Yeah, I agree with what you say, and I think people feel safe to be vulnerable. So I think part of what I enjoy is creating a safe, non-judgmental, warm, nurturing space that people can come and actually just let everything come out, and actually all that stuff that they've been holding or not wanting to look at, creating the space and the time for that to kind of be unpacked, and then holding that container while it gets unpacked. And then as soon as somebody sees somebody else be vulnerable, that gives them the courage to be vulnerable. And you'll always notice in these sharing circles, because we always start with sharing circle and closing circle, you'll always find somebody always resonates. You almost resonate with every single person in the circle to some degree of what they say, and it makes you feel less alone. So it definitely creates a sense of community, and like we're all in this together. And yeah, and as I say, it creates courage for people to go to those uncomfortable spaces where they have to go to kind of be able to then heal and transform and shift. So yeah, we've got lots of our groups. We always have these WhatsApp groups for the retreat, and they go on forever, for years. They're still seeing each other and hanging out and best of friends because they've gone through this bonding time together. Yeah.
And I love to hear that, and that's kind of like one thing that I was going to point out and chat about, because I find like also with doing yoga retreats for years, I've always found like it's been this like retreat, and people come and they have a massive transformation, and then kind of like when they get back home, they don't really know how to integrate these shifts that they've now experienced and had, and then they kind of feel like they're just left flapping by themselves. Whereas kind of like what you're saying, if you still have that WhatsApp group, they can still tap in, check in with each other, see how they're going. And it's amazing that still, years later, those groups are still functioning and working. And I think I find that as well, like every year I do a teachers retreat for the teachers at my studio, and, outsiders are allowed to come as well. And this last year, we had quite a few students who are kind of like in my year-long program together. And what I find happens is that because you're still meeting every week afterwards, there's this space where growth is able to continue after the retreat. Kind of like apart like from, did you start these WhatsApp group because you were noticing that there was this little bit of a dip at the end after retreats in the beginning, or kind of like how did that come by?
I think I always felt that it was because from my own experience, of going on a retreat, and then afterwards you're like, you kind of like, now what? How do we integrate this? I remember when I actually did my very first retreat, was actually probably my most intense one. It was a 10-day Vipassana in Thailand. And I came out of there and I went to Bangkok, and I was like, how am I going to cope? 10 days of silence, and I didn't have someone to, I really struggled to integrate. I went to the most remote island I could find just to like recover. But yeah, so I think it's just I'm having the experience of knowing what it feels like to be in that little bubble and then come out of it. It's nice to have that support. So I think the WhatsApp groups came with that intention. Also, you know, often we're organizing before the retreat. So it's like, you know, if you lift sharing and that kind of thing, put it on the group. And then the group just stayed open. And then we just saw how important it is. And most of the time they're all just meeting socially, you know, and I'll invite them to like other events I'm doing that are shorter, for example, just to like keep the flow going, or if they found certain tools on the retreat that they like and there's a certain workshop where those tools are, you know, but half the time they're just wanting to meet socially and just keep that connection going. So yeah, it's important.
And I love how you're saying how kind of like also with the other workshops that you're doing, you know, if it's one day workshops or a couple of hours here or there, that they can still all come in and connect and touch base again. I think that's so important, that it's not just like a yoga class or a meditation class here and there, but actually that it's maybe a slightly longer, more in-depth purpose again for a bit more of that connection to take place.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to integrate these tools from retreats like regularly, consistently. You know, it's all very well going on a retreat once a year, but it's like a very intense amount of time. And it's also important to kind of just keep parts of that going, you know. So that's why I do all the processes that happen on my retreats. I also do as kind of individual workshops or individual half-day retreats. I've started doing these half-day retreats, which work well as well, because they've come off a weekend retreat, and you know, often people can't go away for a whole weekend because of whatever. And then the half day retreat, so it's longer than a yoga class, it's 4 hours, and then they can again just go that little bit deeper because they've got that extra time. And it's like a top up, I guess. You know, I think it's important to top up before we get too out of balance.
Well, that's the reality nowadays. I mean, there's so much chaos, there's so much movement, there's so much just happening, and people don't, you know, as much as they maybe have an intention or they would like to go to, you know, a weekend yoga retreat or a 5-day yoga or any kind of retreat, often there's just so much going on in people's lives and emergencies. I mean, like you've just dealt with like a flat tire this morning. I've dealt with like a husband who's got malaria this week. Like, you know, stuff happened and you've got to shift, you know, your whole, you know, plans for the day around or whatnot. So we kind of do live in this volatile world, and it's lovely to be able to have that space and take 2-3 days out and go and retreat and just really, you know, zone in on yourself and be there for yourself. But so many people actually just can't do that commitment. So I love the idea of like the half day longer workshop where it just takes you a little bit further than a normal yoga class would, because you can just take that little step, go a little bit deeper, and it's magical what can happen. And kind of like the transformation, small little easy transformations that people gather from that. So yeah, I'm thrilled to hear that you're doing those, offering those, and that they're going so well. And I think the other thing, kind of like what drew me to you, is I spent nearly 2 years living in Tanzania, again, farming in the middle of nowhere. But and Zanzibar was always kind of like, yes, we'll get there. We ended up, I did yoga retreats on Mafia Island, which was just an island south of there. But Zanzibar, so you've been taking people across to Zanzibar for a couple of years now already, is that right? How did that all happen? And like, tell me about that, or us, or whoever's going to be listening.
It was hard to remember like how it all began. Yeah, I think we've done 3 retreats in Zanzibar now, Alida and I. And so I think because I was traveling quite a lot in East Africa as a tour guide before the yoga kind of took over my priorities. So I was quite familiar with Zanzibar. I had like a homeboy there, Mohammed, who's a very good friend of mine, and it really helped having him. So yeah, we just decided to do. I mean, there was demand from our clients as well. I think a lot of females in South Africa are wanting to go to travel alone, or too scared to travel alone, and wanting to go to somewhere exotic like Zanzibar. And the nice thing is, it's like it's a different retreat to what I usually do. So it's not like, normally it's quite like not serious, but like, you know, deep. And you know, in Zanzibar, it's an island, it's tropical, so there's a lot of fun. There's cocktails, there's meat and seafood, and normally I'm like, you know, vegan, no alcohol, da da da. So it's quite nice to be more relaxed like that. So yeah, there was a demand. People wanted to go, and I had luckily the knowledge of the area and a bit of the culture and everything. So yeah, we just created it and made it happen, and found I knew about the Jambiani area on the East Coast is quieter and less commercialized and more community, you know, kids playing soccer on the beach, and it was just, yeah, so we ended up creating this kind of, it was almost like a tour, but it was a retreat. So there was you know, a spice tour thrown in there, history walking tour, obviously telling, I knew all the best places to shop and eat and everything, which was great. And then we had like a good 5 days at Jambiani. So then it's quieter and beach time, and just created a schedule that was yoga twice a day, morning and evening, but then also a little workshop in there, like a self-development workshop. And then afternoons were normally free before the evening yoga, so people could swim, rest, chill, and nap, go to the market, yeah, and then wander down the beach for dinner. So it's a combo that really works. Yeah, it's a magical place. So
yeah, it is, and that warm water is gorgeous, and the
yeah,
sunshine. Yes, yeah.
yeah.
So if anyone is listening, you haven't been to like Zanzibar or the coast of Mozambique, something like that, you got to get your body there to have some of that lovely water and sunshine. So is this kind of like a retreat you're planning yearly? Is it kind of like in the diary, or does it just come up when there's demand?
Well, we did it 2 years in a row, and then lockdown hit, so there was a big gap, and then this year was the first time we could do it again. So yeah, it might be again next year. I'm still thinking about it. I think it's also important to, you know, it's always about finding that balance between like being consistent in your offerings, but also creating new offerings. So I have actually spotted an amazing looking place in Kenya, which might be next. It's I can't even tell you the name or anything. But I've actually saw it on Instagram, and it just looks magical, and mangroves and sapping through the mangroves. So because then you see, you can also, anybody who's been to Zanzibar but like loves the whole combo of yoga / holiday can then go, oh, let's go see another country. So then you kind of, you know, and our Zanzibar group from this year, they are like the best of friends. They are like doing so much that WhatsApp group is like extremely busy. So because again, when you do an international retreat, people bond even more, because you're all out of your comfort zone. You're all not in your hometown. It's different currency, different language, different. So everyone just, you know, bonds even quicker and even deeper. And then you're still doing all the processes on the retreat as well. So yeah, it's a very powerful combo.
Right.
Yeah.
So pretty much, if anyone's into traveling and excitement and loves the idea of yoga retreats and including a little bit of, or maybe a lot of like self-development and exploration, they definitely need to be following you and what you guys get up to, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I love to travel, I won't lie. And if you can combine yoga and sound and all of those beautiful healing processes with travel in an amazing destination, then that's. So the idea with the retreat center is to, you know, after all these years of being the traveler and visiting other retreat centers and making notes, the idea is to now then, you know, create my own retreat centers that I am the sort of, what's the word, the guardian of the space, and people are coming and moving through my space as opposed to me moving. Yeah. So
Good. Love it. Love it. Love it. And this space that is in the ether and in the making, is that going to be local, or are you looking for that to be international, or are you pretty open to anything?
I'm open-minded at this stage, but yeah, I have got quite a good family and friends base that's important to me in Cape Town. So I would think it would be 2 to 3 hours from Cape Town, somewhere in the forest mountains, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the meantime, I'm actually, I wanted to mention to you, I'm running a little studio here in a property in Constantia, and it's quite funny because I've always wanted to have a treehouse retreat, you know, with the accommodation in the form of tree houses. And this property I live on is called the Treehouse, and the studio, it's called the Sanctuary, and it's on a wooden studio, wooden deck, and it's on stilts. So, and it's kind of what I visualized when I was living in Thailand back in 2007. And so it has come to me in a suburban form here in Constantia, but so it's a good starting point. So yeah, from here it can just
and I love that. And as you know, it just shows again the power of visualization. I am such a strong believer in that. And for me over the years also kind of like just imagining or wanting certain things, and then like 5, 10, 15 years later, I sit back and I think about it, and I was like, that's exactly what I thought of like in my early 20s or something. But it's just in a slightly different way than what I'd visualized it or imagined it, but it's pretty much what I'd put out there. So I think the power of visualization is like when we're really in that connected space with like our true soul, our real purpose in life and where we're going, and when we allow, you know, visions or visualizations to come up with kind of like where we're wanting to go, and we kind of like put that intention out there, I think they are so powerful, and really things happen. And I just find things happen quicker now than they did 10, 15 years ago. Like you can literally start to think of something, visualize something, and in some way or shape, way or form, it's actually appearing, manifesting.
That's true. And sometimes it's just come in a slightly different form than you thought it would. But as you say, take that perspective, that step back, and then you'll actually see it, you know, it is something that you desired. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 2023, Janet, with retreats and yoga classes in Constantia and workshops that are happening, what is your theme? Do you have a theme yet for 2023? What is your 2023 going to be all about?
Music, mantra, sound, yoga, retreats. Yeah. I've been getting very much into the mantra chanting. I've got a beautiful Shruti box now. So I've been chanting along with my Shruti box, taking me back to India the moment I play it. A few friends and I have started as kind of like a band called Melodic Mantra. So we just sang now at Shanti Fest. Been doing quite a lot of sound journeys. So yeah, I just want to really, I love working with sound and vibration. You know, using the principles of yoga, but then really focusing on the bhakti yoga, the nada yoga, the sound and vibration elements. And so I just want to bring a lot more music and mantra and sound in a beautiful healing way into my offerings next year, and keep getting more and more instruments. It's addictive.
Very addictive. I absolutely love it, Janet. And I've loved chatting to you. And I think what I'm loving with all these interviews that I'm doing is that everyone is just their own person. Like everyone has their own personality. Like everyone that I've spoken to is a yoga teacher in some sort, but everyone comes like with their little special spice on the side. Like Claire I was chatting to, who's, you know, into Ayurveda, and Nicole, who's more like into kinesiology, and Anand. And like with you and the sound, which I think is just, I mean, sound is to me, it really is the essence, because that's kind of like where the vibration and the release is voiced. Kind of like our words and how we say things are so special. So I'm actually, I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope a lot of people are actually going to seek you out, because I think the sound healing is so important. I think more like now more than ever, it's something that is really needed in our communities. So thank you for stepping up to the plate and allowing it to take hold of you, and for you to like be sharing it with all of us. So big thank you there.
Well, pleasure. Thank you for having me. And yeah, we all have a voice. So I think it's also about expressing ourselves and keeping the throat chakra open, you know, singing, humming, chanting. It's all about actually getting to know your voice and expressing yourself through, and seeing how sounds and vibrations can shift and change your internal state in such a powerful way. So I'm very passionate about that. So
love it, because it's like it's healing, like from the. So I could go on and on chatting to you, and I know I need to stop now. But it's like it's the healing from the inside out, because like the sound when you're listening to sounds, like healing is coming from the outside in, but when you're starting to chant, it's the sound from the inside that's coming out. So it's kind of like a double whammy. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Janet, thank you so much. I could
Thanks
go
for having me.
on and on. But we'll definitely have another catch up in the new year. Love to chat to you again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Cool.